100% of the time, the people who are having a hard time bringing about change have no answer to that question. And the reason I bring that up is there is a relationship between clarity around what and why and the ability for an organization to change. And it goes back to something I said a few minutes ago, that organizations with this kind of clarity are nimble. Organizations with this kind of clarity are so passionately, or generally so passionately committed to what it is they want to do, that they're willing to change just about anything or make whatever changes are necessary in order to accomplish the what in light of the why. So if I know what we're doing and I understand at an emotional level why we have to get it done, why would I resist change? You're not going to resist change because you're more committed to the what and inspired by the why. So the clarity around what and why really does lay the groundwork for an organization that needs to change, and it makes it much easier for an organization to change. So this isn't just a nice to have. In some cases, I would say that the future of an organization, the future of a nonprofit, hinges on, depends on extraordinary clarity around what and why, because every organization at some point in their history or in their future is going to need to make changes. And if you lack clarity around what and why, the people in your organization are automatically and are going to naturally resist change.
Andy, it just seems like it's got to be more complicated than coming up with a compelling what and why statement.
It's way more complicated than that. What many of our listeners have experienced is their boss or their leadership team goes away to an offsite. They wordsmith an incredible statement. We're going to move in a different direction. They come back and have a big meeting and PowerPoint and balloons and food and a big rah-rah. And everybody listens and they're motivated and they think, yeah, this is great. But when the meeting is over, everybody goes back to the same jobs, the same positions, the same organizational structure that was already in place. For there to be movement toward a what around a why, the entire organization has to be organized to the what. Now, when you start an organization, this is easy because you start with an idea and you create an organization to support the idea. When you're changing the direction of an organization, this is so difficult because essentially the hard work isn't coming up with a compelling what and why. The hard work is reorging and restructuring the organization so that it supports the what and the why. So part of this is whenever you find a high-performance team, you're going to find an organizational structure that supports the what and the why. Everything is leaning into. The energy is channeled. The job descriptions are channeled. The positions are channeled toward supporting that idea. And again, starting from scratch, this is easy. Reshaping or refocusing an organization, this is really difficult. But for there to be a sense of team, it has to be done. Another way of saying this is that oftentimes the organization gets in the way of the mission of the organization, or the way a company or nonprofit is organized actually gets in the way or becomes an obstacle to the new what and the new why. So you have to organize to the what. You have to create job descriptions to the what. You have to create positions that support the what. And that's very, very difficult, especially if an organization is changing direction or has discovered a new compelling win, or maybe has rediscovered something that they lost in the past. But you find a great team, and you're going to find a team that's supported by an organization that is designed or structured to the what that they're trying to accomplish. You're going to find an organization where the lion's share of time and resources is allocated to that specific thing that they've identified as the win.
And without that, you end up with a lot of what we call sideways energy.
Yeah, and it's extremely frustrating for high-performance, goal-oriented people. I mean, think about it. If only 15% of my time or only 15% of my job description or responsibility is directly related to what I've been told is most important, that's not motivating. If I'm having to work around my job description, if I'm having to work around a schedule that was preset for me in order to accomplish the thing that you as a leader have told me is most important, that's just demotivating. So again, the tough work, the trench work is going back and asking the question, does my organization or does the structure of my organization actually support the what? Does it actually support the thing that we believe is most important, the reason we exist as a company or organization?
And ultimately, I guess you just start to wonder if the what is really the main thing or just a slogan.
And sometimes you're right, it's just a slogan. It's not really the main thing. And Lane, that's what makes great leaders great leaders. They just don't tolerate the disconnect. They just don't tolerate an organization that doesn't lean into the thing they think is most important. And again, it's the hard work, but it's the thing that makes probably the biggest difference, because an organization creates its own momentum. An organization creates, in a sense of synergy around something. And so going back and asking the question, does our organization, does our structure support the thing that we think is most important, is an extremely important question, but it leads oftentimes to some very difficult and challenging conversation. It's important that we don't force people, either accidentally or intentionally, to work around the organization. If you do that, your great leaders are going to leave. What's the what? What's the thing? What's the what around which everything should be organized? What's the one thing that should drive the energy, harness the energy, focus the energy of this entire, again, it can be a division within an organization, it can be a department, or it could be the organization in general. What's the what around which everything should be organized? And again, when we talk to leaders about this, the pushback is, well, our organization is too complex. We can't boil it down to one thing. And I say, I bet you can. Mm-hmm. You just haven't found it yet. But when you find it, it's going to be so compelling. It's going to harness so much energy. Now you've got something around which you can actually create actual synergy, and around which everybody's job description can be organized. And it's just a powerful thing to do. But it takes time. So what is the what?
Andy, as we wrap up this month's podcast, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, and I sound a bit like a broken record, but I don't want this to slip by. I don't think a leader can overestimate the importance of clarity in your organization. Clarity creates momentum. I wrote about this years ago in my book, The Next Generation Leader, but then, later Marcus Buckingham came around and talked about it in his book, The One Thing You Need to Know. More recently, Patrick Lencioni's come around it in his book, The Advantage. So over and over and over, men and women who are doing research in the area of organizational life come back to the importance of clarity. And again, find me a team that's winning, and I will show you a team that has extraordinary clarity about what they're doing and why they're doing it. You just can't overestimate the power and the importance of clarity in organizational life.
Andy, thanks.